The least glamorous job in any small business is also one of the most important, and it is the one everyone puts off. Cleaning your data. The customer list with the same person entered 3 different ways. The export where half the dates are in one format and half in another. The spreadsheet of survey answers nobody has ever read because reading 2000 free text replies by hand sounds like a punishment. It sits there quietly making every report you run a little wrong, and you keep meaning to fix it and never do. Oh, and help with this genuinely. And that is not a sales pitch. I have used large language models to do in an afternoon what used to eat a week of my evenings. But there is a catch that matters more than the speed. But AI cleans your data quickly, and it sometimes gets it wrong quietly, with total confidence, in ways you will not notice unless you go looking. So today I want to show you where it genuinely saves you hours, where it slips up, and the habits that let you use it without ever trusting it blindly. Then I run my own small businesses, and I do this work myself. I am not a data scientist, and I am not here to sell you a tool. I am the person who exports the messy file, opens it, winces, and figures out how to make it usable before the numbers can mean anything. And I will be honest about the failures, because with data cleaning, the dangerous mistakes are the ones that look fine. What cleaning your data actually means. Before we bring A into it, let us agree on what the job is. Cleaning data means taking a messy pile of records and making it consistent enough to trust. That is deduping. So one customer is one row and not 3. It is standardizing. So every date and phone number and country name follows the same shape. It is categorizing. So a heap of free text gets sorted into a handful of useful buckets. And it is filling the obvious gaps where a value is clearly missing but easy to infer. None of that is exciting, and all of it decides whether your reports are honest. Where AI genuinely saves you hours. The thing A is genuinely good at is the tedious pattern work that used to need either a human reading every row or a programmer writing fiddly rules, where the right answer is obvious to a person but annoying to write out as code. A language model can look at a column of messy input and follow a plain instruction like make every one of these a date in the same format, and handle the ragged variety that would take you an hour of rules to cover. That is real time saved, and it is where I reach for it first. Deduping and merging duplicates. The first place it earns its keep is finding duplicates that are not exact matches. Your list has John Smith, J. Smith, and John Smith with a trailing space, and the plain spreadsheet sees 3 different people. AI is good at spotting that these are probably the same person because it reads them the way you would. I say probably on purpose. It is making a judgment, not a certainty. So it saves you the first 90% of the effort and hands you a short list to check by hand. Standardizing formats. The second win is standardizing formats, and this is the cleanest use of all. Dates written 5 different ways. Phone numbers with and without country codes. Country names spelled out in one row and abbreviated in the next. Describe the format you want in plain words and let the model rewrite the column into it. It handles the messy edge cases that trip up a simple find and replace. Even here, I keep the original column untouched and put the clean version beside it, so I can always see what it changed. Categorizing free text. The third win, and the one that feels closest to magic, is turning free text into categories. You have 2000 survey answers or support messages in people's own words, and you want them sorted into a few themes so you can actually see what people are saying. Reading them all by hand is a week you do not have. An AI can read each one and tag it. Pricing complaint, feature request, praise, confusion about setup in a fraction of the time. This used to be simply impossible for a one-person business, and now it is an afternoon. Filling the obvious gaps. The fourth use is filling gaps that are genuinely obvious. A row has the city, but the state field is blank, and the state is not a mystery once you know the city. I can fill that kind of thing sensibly, But notice the word obvious. Filling a gap that can be inferred from other columns is safe. Inventing a value the data does not actually support is not filling a gap. It is making something up. And that is the exact line where this stops being cleaning and starts being fiction, where it quietly gets things wrong. Now the honest part, because everything so far was the good news. The trouble with using AI for data work is not that it fails loudly. A tool that crashes is easy to catch. The trouble is that it fails quietly and confidently. It hands you a clean-looking column with a straight face, and a handful of the values are wrong in ways that look perfectly reasonable. No error message, no warning, just a few bad cells hiding in a sea of good ones. Confident wrong answers. The classic failure is the confident wrong answer, what people call a hallucination. Ask a model to standardize a list of company names, and it might helpfully correct one to a real company that is not the one you meant. Ask it to categorize, and it might invent a category you never asked for because a row did not fit neatly. It produces the same calm, tidy output, whether it is certain or completely off. And that evenness is exactly what makes it dangerous. It can drop or alter rows. A subtler failure is quantity. Hand a model a big batch and ask it to clean every row. And sometimes it gives you back fewer rows than you sent, or silently reorders them, or tidies a value you never wanted touched. It is trying to be helpful and takes a liberty you did not authorize, so I never assume what comes back is shaped like what I sent. The count of rows going in should match the count coming out, and if it does not, something happened that you need to understand. Keep the original always. So here are the habits that make this safe. And the first is the simplest. Never let A edit your only copy. Work on a duplicate. Keep the raw original untouched, somewhere safe, and put the cleaned result in a new column or a new file. If the model quietly mangles something, you want to be able to compare against the truth and start again. Work in small batches. The second habit is to feed it small batches rather than the whole file at once. It is tempting to paste in all 5,000 rows and let it run, but smaller batches are easier to check, less likely to get silently truncated, and far easier to redo when one goes wrong. A few hundred rows at a time is slower to set up and much faster to trust. The sample check. The third habit is the one I will not skip. The sample check. After the model cleans a batch, I pull a random handful of rows, say 20 or 30, and check them against the original by hand, not the ones at the top, a random spread, because problems love to hide in the middle. If the sample is clean, I have real reason to trust the batch. If 2 of my 30 are wrong, I have just learned the whole batch needs another look. Make it show its work. The fourth habit is to make the model explain the rule it used, not just give you the answer. Ask it to tell you, in plain words, how it decided which rows were duplicates, or how it assigned the categories. When it states the rule, you can judge whether the rule is sound, and you often catch a bad assumption before you look at the output. The privacy line you do not cross. Now the most important caution, and it has nothing to do with accuracy. Be very careful what data you send. When you paste customer information into an online AI tool, you are handing that information to another company, and you need to know their rules before you do it. Real names, email addresses, phone numbers, anything that identifies a person, this is personal data, sometimes called PII, and it is not yours to scatter around casually. Some of it you are legally responsible for. This is not the place for guesses, and it is not legal advice. It is a line I simply do not cross without knowing exactly where the data is going. Strip it down before you send it. The practical version of that caution is to send the model as little real personal data as you can. If you wanted to standardize a format, you often do not need the names attached at all. Strip the identifying columns out, clean the harmless structural stuff, and join the names back on your own machine afterwards. Or use a tool that runs locally on your own computer so nothing leaves at all. Before you paste, Ask whether this really needs anyone's personal details, and usually it does not. Treat the output as a draft. Underneath all of these habits is one mindset. Treat what the AI gives you as a first draft, never a final answer. It is a fast, tireless assistant that does the boring 90% and hands you something to review, and the review is not optional. It is the actual work. It does not replace your judgment. It clears away the tedium so your judgment can go to the handful of rows that genuinely need a human. An assistant you check is a gift. An assistant you trust blindly is a liability. Nanis Tanimerwens and Intinyan. A word for the smallest operators. One last thing for the smallest operators, because it is easy to feel you should hand the whole job over and walk away. Do not. Start with one column and one clearly defined task. Standardize these dates and get comfortable checking its work on something small before you point it at anything that matters. Spend your limited hours on the judgment calls and let the machine take the drudgery, while you stay the one who signs off on what is true. If this made data cleaning feel less like a chore you dread and more like something you can get on top of, that is what I am after. Every one of these explainers lives in writing at dataresearchanalysiscollection.com, the whole library in plain English, so you can read it again with your own messy file open beside you, or pick up the next topic when you are ready. No hype, no promises about results, just the plain version so you can make your own call. So to recap, AE is genuinely good at the tedious cleaning work, deduping near matches, standardizing formats, sorting free text into categories, and filling gaps that are truly obvious. But it fails quietly and confidently, so keep the original untouched, work in small batches, do a random sample check on every batch, and make it explain the rule it followed. Guard your customers' personal data and send as little of it as you can. And treat every result as a draft you verify, never a truth you assume. Do that, and A becomes the best cleaning assistant a solo operator ever had, without ever getting to decide what is true. I will see you in the next one.